All right, here it is. This is going to be our 7x14 cargo trailer conversion. The goal of this video is to be an overview, so we're going to go over the entire trailer as a whole. We're going to have additional videos within this series that's going to drill down into a little bit more detail about certain build aspects of this trailer. So if there's something that you see in this trailer that I don't go into fine details about that you want to know more, just leave a comment down below and we'll make sure that we add it to the build series. So we'll just jump right on into it. So we got this is a 2021 7x14 with a 7-foot interior interstate load runner. And we purchased this in April of 2021 from Trailers Plus up in Portland, Oregon. That company, I have nothing bad to say. They have a fantastic trailer. This trailer's got some miles on it. It's held up very well. The build quality is great. And the purchase process was fairly easy and straightforward. So very happy with that. Love the color. The only thing is, of course, you can kind of see the ripples in the sunlight a little bit. You don't really notice it too much, but of course, if you're parked just right and you're looking at it through a camera lens, it looks a lot worse than what it really is. But I'm not exactly sure the thickness of the aluminum on the side, but I'm sure Trailers Plus has that information on their website. Part of this build is we have a 2021 F-150 Power Boost. This truck was specifically ordered to pull and power the camper. So we'll get into a little bit more details shortly about that truck, but that truck does have a built-in 7.2 kilowatt generator. It's on, it's running, you can't hear it, it's silent. Fantastic combination with this camper because when you go boondocking, especially if you go to areas that have generator restrictions like Glacier National Park, you can have 24/7 power off of a silent hybrid gas vehicle. It's just a fantastic combination. So we'll start off with the back of the trailer and we'll just go over the details of the ramp. All right, so when it comes to the back, you have two options. You either have the barn doors or you have the ramp. For us, we initially thought about doing the barn doors, but with the barn doors, you have kind of a couple options there. You can turn the back into a kitchen, which we see a lot of people do. Maybe a kitchen with a little bit of garage storage space. That quickly diminished when we thought about it a little bit more in detail, primarily being that we're in the Pacific Northwest, so we have to adapt to the weather. And a really good example of that was we wanted a trailer that could just be ready to go and we just hook up and go anywhere we want for the weekend. And for 2022, we pretty much went every other weekend and that was fantastic. But with that, you have to adapt to the weather. So if you had a kitchen in the back, you're exposed to the wind, the rain, the cold, whatever it may be. And then the other thing about the back with the barn doors is the height. So of course you don't have the ramp, which is about a foot off the ground right now. And so you have about 8 foot that you have to reach up to. So it seems like it'd be a lot of wasted space just to have something that's level to your arms and your arm's reach in the back. So we ended up going with the patio, of course, with the ramp. And we love that for a few reasons. Primarily because it gets you up and elevated off the ground. So a really good example is in the morning when I want to have my coffee. I don't need to walk outside and tromp in the wet dirt. You know, in the Pacific Northwest, you do have the wet, foggy mornings. And so I can lower the patio deck from the inside, keep my slippers on, set up my chair, and I can enjoy my coffee without having to track through the dirt. Another perk for us is we of course have a German Shepherd dog. She is, I think, 5 years old at this point, but she knows that that patio deck is her space. So when we do go camping, if we're at a campground that has leash laws or restrictions or whatever, we know that of course that's her spot. It's part of the camper. She lays there and we don't have to worry about tying her up. So with the awning, we do have an awning back there. It's going to be a CVT, which is Cascadia Vehicle Tents. The model I got specifically is a 79-inch Pioneer, and that's a perfect fit for the back patio. So when that awning is deployed, the legs that come down actually fit perfectly on the end corners, and we drilled out some holes here. So the feet fit right there. And then we have these loops right here. So we use guidelines with carabiners, with tension assist carabiners. And they just hook on right there. The other end hooks up on top of the awning, cinch it down, and that gets it nice and taut. And then now the awning is part of the patio deck. So now you don't have to worry about trying to put stakes in the ground. You don't have to worry about the tent not being, or the awning not being fully secured. And now it just all ties in. So if it gets a little bit windy, that wind has to overcome the weight of the patio deck before it will ever lift up. And of course, you can also put the legs out to the sides just a little bit so they're independent from the patio deck. And they do go up high enough so you can have the awning straight out and still be able to close the patio deck if you wanted to. So as far as the chairs go, we really like these REI chairs. So we have the outboard table, I believe it's called, which is held up very well. A lot of metal construction right there, powder coated. And then the chairs here, we love these chairs. They're super comfortable. They have little backpack straps on them. So that way, if you want to take it to a neighbor's, you want to take it down to the beach, they're super lightweight, super easy to carry, padded. The only thing is the screws that come in to attach the hardware down below, they just use 1/2 inch screws that go in. So once you start putting your weight on the back time and time again, they work loose and then they bore themselves out of the hole. So I just got some M4, I think these are M4 socket heads, and with nuts and bolts basically, and we just attach them like that. So that way this back piece won't come off. That's the only modification you need to do with these chairs. Otherwise, those chairs are fantastic. 2 of them live in the trailer full time. Of course, this one, and then we also have that one up on the front head wall up there. But those chairs are fantastic, and they fit perfectly onto the patio deck as well, which is a nice little perk. The other nice thing about the patio, you can use it as a side table. So if you bring those chairs down, you can sit around the corners of the patio deck and have a nice little gathering spot right there. You can put food out there. And the other nice thing that we absolutely love is the Solo Stove fire pit. So the Solo Stove, I know the ring is upside down, but the Solo Stove, you could put that out, and when you get to a campground, for example, the fire ring is usually not in a good location, but with the Solo Stove, you could place it almost anywhere. So what we like to do especially is we'll take the Solo Stove, we'll put it up close to where the patio deck is at, and then we'll sit on the edge of the patio deck on the ground, or we'll sit up on the patio deck and have the Solo Stove right there. But it's really nice having that Solo Stove because you can have a smokeless fire and you can place it anywhere that's convenient at camp. And that's just one thing that we absolutely love, is having that Solo Stove, being able to bring it up to the patio space. That's kind of where everybody hangs out at, is the patio space, and it works out fantastic for us. So with the firewood, of course, having the fire pit, I like to store my firewood underneath the trailer, and typically we'll bring our own firewood for the most part. I call it designer firewood because I don't have to chop it down, but I'll store the firewood underneath the trailer right there. And if I have enough, I'll actually extend that and I'll store it underneath the trailer on the front side there as well. That just keeps it dry, so if it rains, whatever, it keeps it out of the way. And the bonus is at nighttime, we have underbody lighting on the trailer, and the firewood lights up a little bit and it just glows and looks really cool. So those are the 3 main reasons why we keep the firewood underneath the trailer. As far as the fender goes, we do have this board. This is just common board. I believe it's 10 inch by 6 foot. And we just put it on the fender right there. It gives you a nice little area to put camp gear, drinks, whatever it may be. I did have to make some spacers because there is a marker light right there. So as you can see, we have spacers on both ends. We just put those on. And then now we have a nice little sideboard table utilizing that fender space on the side. We do have overhead lighting. I installed this about a year after we took delivery of the trailer. We don't use the overhead lighting too much. We primarily only use the underbody lighting. We just find the indirect lighting lights up the camp a little bit better. It's a little bit easier on the eyes. We do use the overhead lighting whenever we're cooking on the griddle, for example, but for the most part, we really don't use the overhead lighting. So I have some video content I'm gonna patch in here, and that's gonna go over the lighting. All right, so of course now we're here at nighttime. So this is a great opportunity to be able to see the underbody lights, and we're going to start off with those first. So originally we had LED strips or just one LED strip that went from the front of the trailer all the way to the back. And I broke that a few times because that strip rode on the frame. And with the suspension components, if these guys get hit hard enough, they'll actually touch the frame, and it broke the strip 3 times in the last 3 years. So I'd only have lights from the wheel up to the front where the power input's at. So finally got to it this year. Just going to replace it. Decided to try rock lights just to kind of see how those look, how those work. And we have that new trailer that's coming in, so I just wanted to kind of explore my options on a test trailer before I did a firm permanent install on the new trailer. If I did do the rock lights again, I would do a 10 puck system. This is an 8, so there's 4 pucks on each side. It's more noticeable in person, but there's a dead spot right here. Looks really good in uniform in the back, and then looks really good in the front, but there is that dead spot right underneath the door. Same thing for the other side of the trailer. So I would do the 10 puck system for a 14 or 16 foot. 18 foot, you probably need to do a 12 puck system. But, you know, with my experience with the two, I definitely prefer the LED light strip, the 16 footer, to go on both sides. And it's just a lot more uniform looking. But I probably will also install the rock lights. I'll probably have both options, but to start initially, I'll definitely just do the LED strip first on both sides. And I'll probably do that in color. The original ones I had were just warm white, so there was no color option. Rock lights, I want to try out the colors and kind of see how those looked and how those worked. And of course, it's always fun to change the colors on those, but this is what it looks like with the rock lights on. And we just like the indirect low lights. Just adds a little bit more to the trailer. And these rock lights are dual zone, so you can change colors on both sides independently if you'd like. But yeah, we just really like the underbody lights. It just adds a little bit more to the trailer and to the experience when outdoors, especially out in the middle of nowhere where we'd like to go. So let's go ahead and we'll turn these guys off, which leaves us with the LED strip on the back. Hit a pothole. So the strip on the back, it's an LED strip, warm white, that I installed underneath the awning. So you can't see the LED strip in general unless you walk up on it. What you're seeing on the camera from about this point is the reflection of the lights onto the silver aluminum there. But it just adds nice accent lighting. And I believe this is right about 50%, so you could turn it down even more, but it's really nice at nighttime, especially if you're at a campground. You could turn on those lights in the back right there and not disrupt your neighbors. But if you need to get out behind the trailer, you still have a little bit of light. So I think on the next build, I'll probably put up 2 strips, see if I can finagle that. Have a red, if I can get a red strip to be able to dim with park lights, and then go full bright when the brake lights are applied, just so it adds a little bit more cool factor, and then also a little bit more visibility with brake lights, because we are in the Pacific Northwest, so visibility is often cut. And still do the warm white in the back just to be able to get the light off the back end of the trailer. All right, now the fun part. So let me close this door here. So as discussed earlier, we have light heads on all 4 corners and the light bars in the back. We'll start off with white. So hit these guys, and there we go. So these lights are really bright, and they're fantastic for pulling up to camp in the middle of the night As you can see, it really lights everything up. So these could be wired in to where they could be pulled off the house battery. So if you're at camp and you need to have lights turned on like this, you can obviously turn them on. Or you can wire them in, secondary option, which is how I have it wired in as well, to come on when the truck goes into reverse. So that way you set it up because you know you're going to get into camp after dark. And when you put it in reverse, the white lights turn on. And then at camp, because they are two color, you also have your amber. The amber is really nice, especially out in the middle of nowhere, because it's not too intrusive, but it really lights up the scene. So you can see those critters. Good example is when we were up in Glacier National Park. We stayed at Libby Dam on the way there and the way back. We've done that trip a couple times. Middle of nowhere, pitch black, nobody around. So it's always nice to have lighting to be able to especially light up the camp area. Because if you're the only ones out there, it can get a little too dark. And of course, the nice fun part about this, I've only had to use this a few times. You can activate both white and amber and you'll get your party lights. I've used this a few times when I had to back up into traffic. And the thought process on that is, if I'm backing up, I can't predict who's going to come around a corner or whatever the case may be. So this is just another layer of somebody to be able to see me and see the trailer. And especially if you're backing up into traffic, it just adds a little bit more visibility. It's all wired up, so as long as the light heads have power to each color and they both get activated with power at the same time, you'll get that function. And then we'll do just the corners. So we don't have the floodlights off the back anymore. It's just all four corners. A little bit easier on the eyes. 90% of the time, this is how we roll. It just lights up the camp area really nice right there. All right, let's go on the inside. Take a look at the lights there. Oh, before I forget, actually we'll turn this guy on. So this guy is hooked up to a dimmer switch right up here. Turn this light off. So your typical light. It was a little hard to find that one in a warm white. I believe it's a 9-inch, and I'm just not a fan of the super bright white. I prefer more of a little bit of a warm color to it. So I was able to find this, but as you could tell, this obviously lights up everything really, really well. And the only time I typically use that light is whenever we're cooking or we're cleaning up at night, just to have that downward light. So that light doesn't get used too often. All right, so on the inside here, so there we go. We have the puck lights, as you can tell, really nicely lit. I'll zoom out here. Oh, can't do that. Well, this is the focal point we got. So yeah, so this is the warm white. I'll go ahead and close the door. So these puck lights, really impressed with these lights. You see these puck lights on a lot of the van builds. These are nothing new, nothing special, very, very common. These are going to be more of the warm white. We originally did the bright white, the 6500 Kelvin. I think these are 4300 Kelvin, somewhere around that range. And we did the super bright white. Was not a fan. It was too sterile. felt like you're in a hospital, and it was just too harsh on the eyes. So we actually left one for the bathroom area. So turn that on. And that's the difference. So you could tell one is definitely warmer than the other. And this bright white was just a little too much. It's not so bad when it's by itself, but you get 4, 5, 6 of them strung all the way down. It just really turns it into a super crisp, bright white. So that's probably the best example I can give you right there as far as the color tone. So again, we just prefer the warm white, and I switched those out after the first trip because that super bright white was way too much. The LED strip that we see up here on the top. So I didn't finish out, as I mentioned, merging the ceiling with the wall. And during one of our trips, we were somewhere, I think it was Astoria or Brookings, and we went into Fred Meyer. I ended up getting an LED strip, and it's a 16.5-foot strip, and just ran it, of course, underneath the trim. And it terminates inside right here. Not happy with the install in general. Not happy that I didn't finish this part out, but this does work. So I am happy that we have the lights up there. It just looks a little unfinished because obviously I got some paint on the studs right there. And I think if I didn't get paint on there, because I thought I was going to cover it up, it'd probably look a little bit better. But overall, we do like that light because at nighttime, we turn that to red. That way when we're in bed and one of us has to get up for whatever reason, usually to go to the bathroom, trying to fumble around and try to touch a glass panel for the lights, a little difficult, plus you might wake your partner. And just having that red gives just enough light to be able to see, and it also transfers into the bathroom area. So that way you can use the facilities and not wake everybody up in the trailer. So that's full brightness. That's dimmed all the way down. Let's see if we can turn these red. Actually, I think that's orange. Nope, that's red. It shows up orange on the camera there. So there we go. Just enough to be able to see, and that's on full brightness, and we typically turn it down onto the minimum. But as you can see, even I'm trying to find it. Look at the screen here. Oh, there we go. So there we go. That is our lighting situation for nighttime. So this is probably my favorite piece. I get asked a lot about this. So this is going to be a piece of steel that has naturally weathered throughout the years. And I just wanted to have something unique to the trailer itself. So I ended up ordering a cutout of Oregon because that's where we're from. And there's some spacers in there. So there's a little bit of a standoff. I believe it's about 1/8 of an inch. So it stands off just enough so you don't get the rust off the side of the trailer right there. And it just adds a really cool, unique dynamic to the trailer right there. So all it is just a piece of steel, a little bit of standoffs, and just a really cool conversation piece. All right, so we'll work on the door. So with the door here, have this nice grab bar right here. And the reason why we did that grab bar so large is because, of course, the trailer sits so far off the ground. So when you walk up to the trailer from the outside, you're naturally going to grab the handle right about this area. But when you're inside the trailer, you're of course elevated, and you're going to start grabbing that handle usually right about right here. So that's just simple black pipe from Home Depot. And we just put it on the side right there, been using it ever since, and it's held up very well. But we love that grab bar because it just makes it so easy to open and close that door. Which, speaking of such, when it comes to opening and closing the door, I just use magnets. So we have a slide bar so you can lock the door from the inside. and I just use magnets to close the door up right there. I prefer the magnets because the RV door handles, it's just something you have to grab. From the inside, it's lower for you. On the outside, I think it is probably about normal height. But I just like the magnets because you can adjust the tension by however many magnets that you put on the side right there. But it's just an easy way to make sure that door stays nice and secured. Primarily being in the morning when I wake up and I want to leave the trailer for whatever reason, and the wife is inside the trailer, we don't have to worry about the door potentially coming open. It just naturally closes itself up and it stays nice and shut. So all you need to do is just find magnets that are the proper thickness. So I just had extra magnets here, so there's 2 magnets on top of each other. These magnets down here, they like to live on the door instead. And same thing, just 2 magnets stacked up. I think they're rubber coated, and they've just been there for the last 3 years. And that's it. So really happy with that. Our next trailer build, definitely going to use the magnets instead. It's just so much easier just to be able to pull it and it just opens, but has enough tension to keep itself shut. Little basket right here. This is primarily where I just keep the odds and ends. A little bit of tooling, flashlights, gloves, the locks for the doors, the lights for the underbody, weather sensor, doggy bags, just general junk. And I like having that basket right there because I don't have to always transition into the camper to be able to go grab those common everyday items. They just live right there in the door. So that I have a laser business, I designed a insert right here to fill the gap because I did have the gap between the 2 pieces of plywood. So I did make that. I believe that is out of walnut. And then the window, I did install the window. So the framing is 16-inch on center, but on the door, it's a little bit different. So you have the framing of the door and there's a support beam that goes straight down here, which ties in with this guy. So I was able to put in a little bit of a larger window, and we only have 2 windows on this trailer. So I have the door window, and then there's a window on the opposite side over there on the trailer there. All right, so on the front of the trailer here, we have a couple things going on. So we'll start up on the front face here. This is going to be our diesel tank. So this is just plasti dipped. This is about 2.5 years old. It's been holding up really well. And I just wanted to put a layer of protection on there so it doesn't get weather checked. I put a little tape in there so that way I can see what the fuel line is. Other than that, this is entirely plasti dipped and no complaints on that so far. However, I think on the next build, I probably will do an aluminum fuel cell for the diesel. Tool chest, pretty standard. That's where we put all of our crap, right? So I got the extension cords, I got the Edison bulbs, leveling blocks, house battery lives in there, spare parts, a couple tools, nuts and bolts, things like that. And that's from Harbor Freight. I believe that was about $100. The jacks. So a lot of issues that people have is when they have their jack on the tongue and they go to lower their tailgate, the tailgate falls down and they damage the tailgate because they hit the tongue jack. So this is the Jackie Up, made in USA. It comes with this bracket, and this just slips right on in, and you're able to easily remove it, and then you just turn it quarter-wise, and then it locks into place, and then that way you can lift and lower the tongue as needed. But in storage or in transport mode, you can easily take the tongue jack out and not have to worry about damaging your tailgate or making it easier for thieves to steal your trailer. Along with that, on our safety chains, I did add this quick connect. So that way we can quickly connect it to the tongue of the trailer, and of course have your safety chains. When you're in storage, you can take your safety chains off, and like I said, just makes it a little bit harder for somebody to steal. So with that said, let's move on to the truck before we go to the other side of the camper here. All right, so as far as the truck goes, this is going to be a 2021 F-150 Power Boost. I ordered this specifically to pull and power our camper, so it does have the built-in 7.2 kilowatt generator. Right now the truck is on, it's running, it's providing power to the camper, but the beautiful thing about it is it's silent power. And a really good use case is, for example, at Glacier National Park. You can only run your generator for 2 hours, 3 times a day. So they have 2-hour blocks, 3 blocks a day. With the truck, you have power pretty much the entire time you're there. Our use case, the truck self-regulates, so it turns on about every 2 hours and it'll idle for about 90 seconds to recharge the hybrid battery, and that's it. So we have constant power at camp, and we don't have to follow those generator restrictions, because when the truck does start, it's just an idling vehicle. And those really aren't that loud, especially when you have newer vehicles. So fantastic use case for that. If you're out boondocking in the middle of nowhere, you don't have to carry a generator. It's all built into the truck. The only thing with that is when the truck is away from the trailer, for example, if we have the crock pot going, of course we want to keep the fridge going, but we want to go for a hike that's 20 miles down the road. I do have an EcoFlow Delta system that's in the trailer to provide power for those appliances while the truck is away. But majority of the time, as you know, your tow vehicle is typically with the camper. So fantastic use case. The truck does show you what your power consumption is. So you got a nice display right there, and I'll show you kind of what you're pulling. And as far as the plugs in the back, so we just hook up an extension cable, but you do have a couple options as far as power goes. You have a 30 amp outlet, as well as your 220 amp outlets. And we just hook up an extension cable, and we just close the tonneau cover right on top of it, and it just plugs right into the front of the trailer right there. So fantastic truck, gets us about 12 miles a gallon going down the highway. And it's just a great combination just to be able to power your camper. So highly recommend that. All right, so coming on the other side of the trailer here, we of course have our jerry can, which is for the diesel heater. That's just to be able to pick up fuel and refill the diesel tank right there on the trailer. As far as power goes, I just got one of these outlets right here, and all it is, it allows an extension cord of 15 amp to plug right on into the front face of the trailer here. With this plug, I did have, after about 1.5 years, it shorted out, and I was able to fix that and keep going on with my trip. So I don't know exactly how reliable these are. I did have one that did short itself out, but this one seems to be going pretty well. I did tighten down the screws a little bit more, but we'll see how this treats us here as far as long term. But it's just a simple inlet, 15 amp inlet, and it just goes on the inside of the trailer there, and it just hardwires into the power distribution panel. On the side here, we do have our American flag. So I use these clamps right here, and these have actually held up really well. I think I paid 20 bucks for the set right here, and these clamps have been on here exposed to the elements for the last 2 years, and they're actually holding up really well. So 2 points to connect to. You can either connect on this guy right here or on this one right here, and you can make a little bit more tension by flipping that down. But this is where we carry our American flag. If we're at camp long enough, I'll take that American flag and I'll stick it right in where the tongue jack goes, and just fly the flag proud. So store the flag on the side. Nothing too exciting on this side. Of course, we have the wheel chocks that we put on the tires right there, of course. And then we have our side window back here. And for communications, both GMRS and ham, we do have an antenna on the back corner right here, and that feeds on into the inside there. As far as windows go, we only have 2 windows. So we have this window in the back corner, and then we have the window on the front door that we saw earlier. I don't have any vents up top. So as far as ventilation goes, we just open up the front door window, and then we open up this window and we get a nice little breeze that goes through. Starlink, very important. Now that it's $50 a month for 50 gigs, that's an incredible deal. So of course, when we go out, a lot of places we go to doesn't have cell service. So for us, that's pretty cheap, and we just plop it on the ground, let it do its thing, and very happy with the performance of that. All right, so let's go on the inside of the trailer here and we'll just go over some of the details. So with the trailer back end right here, we have twin boys that are about 2 years old at this point. So baby gate galore. This baby gate is actually, I think it's a pet gate because it opens up right here. And that allows that bar to open up. So now the dogs can go through as they need. All right, so moving on inside here. So we'll start with the couch. The couch folds out into a queen, so this seating area right here will fold out right over here. It'll lift up and go and sit right there. The backrest will come and fold straight down. So the seam will go down the middle, so each person has their own dedicated pillow top to sleep on. As far as storage goes for bedding, the storage is underneath the seating area, so when you transition into a bed, you pull out the bedding material, and then you take these pillows, put those pillows down there, and then the backrest would just come down, and there you go. Now you have your bed. You don't have to worry about storing bedding or anything else with inside the trailer. It's all self-contained. And then there is a small lip underneath the couch right here, and that's where the Fender common board lives when it's in transport mode right there. In the back corner here, we have black bar again. So this is what we use for our blankets. Just an easy way to store our wool blankets on the sidewall right there, make a good use of that space. And that's pretty much it as far as the blankets go. As far as the window covering here, same concept as the front door. We just have a piece of fabric here with some weights on there, and then we just use that to cover if we need to. All right, as far as the other interior wall goes, so we have a clock that's on this side. That was just a random purchase that we got when we were on our first camp trip, primarily just to be able to tell what time it was. The control board right here, so this is where we'll hang our car key, typically. And then we have our glass face light switches. So these are dimmer switches. We have one for the main cabin, bathroom area, and then underbody lighting. And so these are actually really nice. They're easy to clean. They work really well. I mean, after 3 years, they're holding up really well. So very happy with those light switches specifically. Radio holders, of course, it's good to have radios in case you're ever separated for whatever reason. So this is just something that I made to be able to hold the 2 radios inside the cabin here. The axes, we got our Grants Force Brooks that are hanging up here. We got the hand hatchet and the small forest axe. I did make some hangers on here so that way these guys can actually live on the walls we transport down the road. We did 2 trips with these like this, and they actually held up really well. So they did not fall off and looks good on top of it. And then of course we have coat hangers. So these I just ordered off Amazon. Great place to hang coats, hang hats, easy to install. We have another piece of common board with some brackets from Amazon. And on top of the common board here, we have our baskets. So we have toiletries, toothpaste and nail clippers and odds and ends, cables and stuff, batteries, fire stuff, wife's box, kids box, my box, and then dog box. And then here's where we store our guidelines for the awning. Let's see if I can pull this out here. And this is the type of carabiner that we use just to be able to get that tension. So it's you just pull the cable and it just tightens itself up. So that's the carabiners that we use for the awning, and we just keep that in this nice little container right up top right here. HomePod. HomePod just lives up here, has a nice little plug right there. It's kind of an afterthought, but it seems to work out pretty well for us. Then we also have our thermostat here. So we have indoors and outdoors. And then the last thing on this side right here, this is where we put our iPad, and we'll just set our iPad Pro right in there. And that's right across from the couch. So when we have movie night inside, or if I'm just sitting here watching a little bit of YouTube during the day, that's where I sit. And of course I have TV. And of course we have Starlink. Starlink came far after the trailer. So right now it just lives in a bracket on the sidewall. Same thing with another bracket for the iPad. That sits right there, and that's for our power management for the Delta Flow or for YouTube or anything. It's just another spot for the iPad to live. Decor that we got
basket, which actually used to live on this wall right here. However, because we have twin boys, this is where their changing table is now at. And that corner of the basket, they would start to hit their head on there. So we had to relocate the basket. So now it just holds a couple plants and some support parts for the oven. Highly recommend a toaster oven. I was not sold on it, but after I got one for the house, loved it, ended up getting one for the trailer. So we have the super nice fancy version for the house, and then we have the basic version here for the camper. Fantastic. Highly recommend toaster oven. Magnetic board for the knives. We do have more knives, but yeah, just a great place to hang them up. You can't have the knives on here when you drive down the road because they'll just kind of work their way down and they'll fall off. But that's a fantastic place to put your knives during camp time. Storage shelf right here. Got this at Lowe's on our first trip. Just need a little bit of vertical space. And it just seemed to fit the theme with the black pipe there. So that's the reason why we went with that, and it stayed. Decor from our wedding day. So moving into the bathroom area. So this is all unfinished. We didn't know exactly how we wanted to finish this out. Of course, we have our privacy curtain right here that we slide shut. Originally, we're supposed to have a sliding barn door, but I never got to that point. So we just use fabric. I built this cabinet system with these IKEA boxes or these IKEA bins, so they just slide out. This is great because when you go to load up or unload, you could just pull these bins out, put them in a cart, and take them right into the house. Just makes loading and unloading the trailer of food and essentials so much easier. Built-in dedicated space for the water jug, and then we have foil and bags, hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies, and just other random gear, toilet paper, liquor cabinet area. And then on the back wall here, it's not very pretty, but it's functional. We have our headlamps, dog light, carabiner, support equipment, diesel heater controller, first aid kit, fire extinguisher, and a cassette toilet. Absolutely love the cassette toilet. You can dump that in a porta potty, a vault toilet, a residential toilet if you had to, a dump station. Highly recommend a cassette toilet. That is just a fantastic piece to have. I thought I wanted black tanks and stuff, but after using the cassette toilet and seeing just how easy it is, I mean, I go about 4 days or so, and then I have to dump it, and that's between 2 adults. Blackstone griddle lives right here at the bottom. And then we have our chairs, the REI chairs that sit right here. They both, there's another hook right about here, and they strap in, and they just live there. And the whole point was so that way we can have the chairs. So we lower the deck, the chairs are always with the camper so we can utilize the deck. And then we have additional storage on the side of the clothes cabinet here. So that's where we store the tables, hammocks, and some other odds and ends. Then we have our clothes storage. So we just have shelf, pull-out drawers, which are really nice because it makes it easier to get in a little bit deeper. And then we have hanging storage right down here. And then you can fit a couple more things down below, but for the most part, this is our clothes storage. We got this cabinet from IKEA. So just a quick, easy install. I had about 4 weeks to build this trailer out before our wedding. Worked out pretty good. Just kept it in there. I'm not going to do the same thing, but I definitely recommend if you're looking for something super easy as far as a wardrobe space goes, IKEA definitely has you set. And then of course on the top you have additional storage up here, which is where I keep the oil pads in case we have a diesel leak for the diesel heater and so on. And of course, as the diesel heater goes, I didn't know about the diesel heater until after the fact. So it's kind of a last minute deal. So I was able to fit the diesel heater in there, and I just have the hot vent tube that comes out right here. Not happy with this. The rest of the trailer is great. Not happy with how this bathroom area turned out, but that's something that obviously I learned from, I can improve. I just wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it, and we just ended up living with it. And the diesel heater specifically, I didn't know about the diesel heater until after the fact. So had I known, the diesel heater would have been a much nicer, cleaner install. Same thing with the control panel and all that. You know, it is what it is, but it's a learning experience, and that's the most important part. Baby gate, because like I said, baby gate galore. Countertop right here. So this is just from Home Depot, a basic white cabinet, shaker style. And then of course we have our utensils. I made a little locking piece here for not only transport, but also to help keep the kids out. And then down here we have an EcoFlow. I have an EcoFlow Delta, that's a river. And then we have our cleaning utensil or cleaning bins. And then we have our cooking utensils all in that area right there. And then the WEFCO power distribution panel, I'll go through that. That's going to be that black box down there. That's where all of our power comes in from the shore power, as far as managing the 12-volt batteries as well. So that'll be in a different video. As far as the fridge goes, we just have a mini fridge from Home Depot. Works out pretty well as far as size goes. I did make this little piece up here up top, and that just has a locking pin. So when you're in transport mode, driving down the road, you can push this in, lock this up, and that way the door doesn't open. And then of course, when you're at home and you're in storage, you can lock it up. That way the door won't close and you won't get mold inside your refrigerator. And then to finish off on this side, so we have another cabinet. This is from IKEA. They did not have white in stock when we went to go get it, so I did paint it. So the paint is now starting to flake off. But overall, we like this cabinet. Butcher block countertop on top, which matches the other side here. So same piece of wood. And we have our data placard that I made. These will be up for sale pretty soon. Same thing. Just a little locking mechanism puzzle to keep the twin boys out. And then in here, this is where we just keep our cleaning supplies, crock pot, clothes wash. We'll go over more details about as far as washing clothes on the road. But we have that, candles, little games, coffee maker, hot water maker. So just the everyday essentials. As far as the floor goes, so the floor is hardwood floors. It's the snap-in style where they connect to each other. We originally did the stick tiles, but with the temperature changes, they started to shrink and expand and bubble and it just didn't look good. So for the last 2 years, we've been using this click style floors, hardwood floors, and they've been holding up really, really well. We just went with the cheap stuff. I think it was like $2.50 a square foot, just your basic hardwood floor from Home Depot. But overall, this hardwood flooring has held up really well. We did get a rug from Costco because we have twin boys and they like to run and whatever and slip. And so we got that for a little bit of added traction for them. And then to cap this off, use aluminum flat bar. Just cut that down to size, and that's a transition. It helps keep the edge nice and clean on the hardwood flooring because you need to be able to seal those off. So we just used aluminum strip on all the edges. There you go, aluminum strip. Just to keep the edges, of course, clean up the cut edge, and then of course you also have to protect the edges as well. This was an afterthought as far as the transition. This got a little bit wet, and of course it's peeling off. I would have done aluminum, but I was in a rush to get this done for one of our trips, just to help keep the dirt out. And definitely don't use this stuff because if it gets wet, that's exactly what happens. So it's just 1/4 inch round or 1/2 inch round, and don't recommend using that. It looked good at first install, but after a couple trips, that's what you end up with.